Yo, all right, so we're about to watch some videos, or just the backstory on Rainbow Six now. Just storyline wise. Get a quick video in. That's one of the Dollar Tree. Bought this rabbit. Yeah, it's Fruity Pebbles flavored. I know this about to be good. This candy bar Fruity Pebbles really good. My brother bought.
Now streaming on Disney Plus.
To me, my X-Men.
Cyclops.
Whether or not you're into Rainbow Six Siege, you still probably know that it's a series that's had a pretty long and extensive history in the industry, with the first Rainbow Six game coming out way back in 1998 and almost yearly installments after that. Rainbow Six Vegas, I think, was a really big turning point for the franchise. I mean, it was the first game in this series to include what we now recognize as more modern gaming mechanics, with things like regenerating health and checkpoints in its attempts to bring the series to the 7th generation of consoles and a new generation of gamers entirely. Compared to the previous entries in the series, which really epitomized challenging, slow-paced tactical shooting, Rainbow Six Vegas was a game you could pick up within minutes and pretty much get the hang of, much to the dismay of many of the series' original fans. Does that make it a bad game? Well, no it doesn't, and I think it still holds up as one of the better tactical shooters ever made and still a pretty damn good shooter in general. Let me explain why. So in Rainbow Six Vegas, your character is a guy named Logan Keller, starting the campaign in Mexico to capture a terrorist leader named Irina Morales. During this prologue, Irina somehow manages to escape and Logan's two teammates are also kidnapped.
Talk.
Fuck you! You're surrounded. Throw down your weapon.
What this prologue really serves to do, though, is set up the main conflict in Las Vegas, where the area suddenly comes under attack, which of course ends up having ties to Irina's terrorist group, and it's where Logan is sent next, which is where things really kick off. Now, I think a big part of what makes Vegas so much fun to play is that it has a simple but still somewhat complex control scheme. Gone are the days of mapping controls to every single button on the keyboard. Now,
I don't know if he's really explaining the story. He's more, he kind of did, I guess. I was saying Siege.
This game, you're not ready for it.
This is the Rainbow Six chronology from the video games. In 3 minutes, let's begin. World War II. The Nazis steal massive amounts of wealth during the Holocaust. Russia defeats Germany, and amidst the chaos, 2 Nazis hide the stolen treasures. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapses.
That's not it. I'm interested in Rainbow Six 1 and 2.
Welcome back everyone, I'm Nick930, and today I wanted to share with you the complete history of Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six.
Go, go, go! Move it! Fire! Tango down!
And can spot Team Rainbow from greater distances.
Down! Tango down.
Mission
Made in any of the game's modes, either online or offline, would be Rainbow Six 3 in these regards. On Metacritic, and currently holds the title for the least popular mainline entry to the Rainbow Six series. And while it certainly was a disappointment, it also is not too surprising either. With Red Storm now focused on a next-gen Ghost Recon, and Ubi Montreal busy with Chaos Theory, Ubisoft always intended Critical Hour to be a sort of gap filler, keeping the Rainbow property relevant while also biding time for one of their bigger studios to tackle a proper follow-up. And with the team at Ubi Montreal wrapping up work on the third Splinter Cell, they were now free to pursue a true next-gen experience, one that would transform the Rainbow Six series forever.
No, don't do it! No, no, don't.
No way.
It's like I always had.
In 2005, almost every studio working under the Ubisoft name was acutely focused on the next generation of console gaming, mainly the Xbox 360 and Sony PlayStation 3. And with the game industry having rapidly grown throughout the course of the mid-2000s, the pressure was on for developers to deliver the revolutionary next steps. Ubi Montreal, determined to deliver on their promise, spent the better part of 2005 working with the new Unreal 3 engine architecture, allowing them to incorporate more advanced lighting and post-processing effects in larger and more complex game worlds. One of their biggest focuses, though, was on improving the realism of the game's many character models, especially in how they moved.
I knew it'd be good.
But rather than keyframe each animation like they had done in the past, they utilize a motion capture studio to record thousands of unique animations, all lending themselves to much more realistic character behavior. Taking it a step further, Ubisoft wanted to deliver a more meaningful cinematic presentation as well, and opted to limit the single-player campaign scope to a single city, based around only 3 Rainbow operatives. This more story-oriented approach, combined with some innovative tweaks to the gameplay mechanics, resulted in a drastically different direction for the series. And after a year of full development, Ubi Montreal released Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Vegas, first for the Xbox 360 and PC, and then for the PS3 and PlayStation Portable a year later. Vegas' story is probably one of the more ambitious and cinematic. Vegas, first for the Xbox 360 and PC, and then for the PS3 and PlayStation Portable a year later. Vegas' story is probably one of the more ambitious and cinematic narratives offered in the entirety of the Rainbow Six franchise. The game kicks off with a small-scale counter-terrorism operation near Mexico, with players assuming the role of series newcomer Logan Keller, as they command a 3-man team to neutralize a terrorist cell leader named Irina Morales. But after finally cornering Morales in an old mining tunnel, Logan's team is ambushed, and his teammates Gabriel and Khan both mysteriously disappear. Logan, having failed to capture Morales, is forced to exfiltrate by chopper, and is immediately flown back into the States to deal with a new incident brewing in Las Vegas, Nevada. Here, Logan regroups with a new pair of AI companions, Michael Walter, a British demolitions expert, and Hyung Park, a South Korean electronics and recon specialist. Together, the trio of Rainbow operatives fight their way through the colorful neon-lit strip, taking down terrorists, freeing hostages, and disarming bombs, only to find that the events in Vegas are directly linked to the scrubbed Irina Morales mission in Mexico, leading to an ultimate showdown at the Hoover Dam. When compared to the past games, it's a major step forward in terms of story quality, but the updates made to the gameplay design are even more noteworthy. Rainbow Six Vegas applies 3 core pillars to its general gameplay structure: observation, planning, and assault, all of which are integrated seamlessly into the action. Players no longer need to flip through tedious briefing screens and level blueprints, and are instead encouraged to adapt to their surroundings on the fly, making quick decisions and executing precise takedowns. To pull off this new 3-tiered gameplay design, Ubisoft tweaked several mechanics to improve the flow of the action. The combat design, for example, is now a blend of the traditional first-person shooting with a new cover-based third-person system that seamlessly zooms out the camera to show Logan and the space around him. This design, while certainly not as realistic as past games, greatly improves target acquisition, as players can now safely view approaching enemies around corners and either blind fire or peek out to target them directly. The game's health system has also been redone, abandoning the old finite health bar with health regeneration instead, and friendly AI who are incapacitated in combat now require a revive, rather than just permanently dying like before. The squad order system was also modified a good amount, simplifying the controls to make them more intuitive when playing with a gamepad. Players can still call for their squad to hold, regroup, or move to a designated position, but can also toggle between the rules of engagement again, which unlocks additional options when setting up door breaches. But Vegas doesn't just clean up the old features from the past, it also introduces a few great new mechanics as well, including a snake cam that can be used to peek under doors and tag enemies for the AI to focus on, and of course, the ability to rappel off the side of buildings and fast rope through skylights, all of which contribute to a much faster paced and intense tactical action experience. When playing the game on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, players were also treated with a new online progression system, similar to the one featured in Critical Hour, that gradually unlocks additional weapons and tools for the players to use when playing online or in co-op. Overall, Rainbow Six Vegas was met with an overwhelmingly positive response. Critics praised Ubisoft Montreal for the beautiful visual design, creative use of the environmental space, and engaging multiplayer content. However, it wasn't perfect. Old-school fans of the series still considered Vegas to be a step in the wrong direction, with mindless shooter action and flashy scripted sequences replacing the tactical sandbox approach from before. But despite these concerns, the game still sold exceptionally well, with nearly 2 million units sold within the first year of its release. And considering the game's campaign ended on a major cliffhanger, it came as no surprise when a sequel was announced only a year later.
Sequel? Oh yeah. Part 2. It was cool.
With the sequel, Ubi Montreal opted for a less is more approach, preserving everything people loved from the first Vegas, while also introducing a new campaign, new level environments, and other quality of life improvements. And after a fairly short development period, Ubisoft released Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Vegas 2 for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Windows PC a month later. Vegas 2 begins with a brief flashback sequence at a mountaintop facility in France that expands upon Gabe Nowak's troubled past with Team Rainbow. Then, the story skips ahead to the day before the Las Vegas incident in the first game. Players assume the role of series newcomer Bishop, who serves as the squad leader of returning operators Michael and Hyung prior to Logan meeting them. To avoid treading the same ground as before though, Vegas 2 brings players to more varied locations in and around Vegas, including a convention center, a rec facility, and a few of the older casinos in the city. The story is a bit more convoluted this time around, as it tries its best to build around the already established narrative from the first game, though it does at least help to resolve the first game's cliffhanger in a somewhat satisfying way. As far as the gameplay is concerned, Vegas 2 plays almost identically to its predecessor. All the controls, movement, and general mechanics function the same way, making the overall experience come off as more of a standalone expansion than a true sequel. Though the game's bright outdoor environments do offer a stark contrast to the claustrophobic and colorful casino floors featured before. And there's a much greater emphasis on player customization this time around, with different equipable armor sets and more varied weapons helping to mix up the action. Vegas 2 also introduces a new progression system called Aces that awards players new gear based on their particular style of engagement. Long-range kills and headshots, for example, reward players with things like sniper rifles, while using explosives or killing shielded enemies goes towards unlocking more durable armor pieces. What's more, this system is also tied to the game's co-op and competitive online modes, only further expanding on the game's well-received progression system. Overall, despite its minimalist approach, Rainbow Six Vegas 2 received decent scores across the board, averaging around the same scores as its predecessor. The game was praised for its creative level designs, intense multiplayer, and expanded progression, but was also criticized for not doing much to innovate or expand on the well-established formula. It was also knocked for being much shorter than the previous title, averaging a little under 5 hours for the main campaign. For fans already happy with the direction that the series took with Vegas, Vegas 2 was a nice bonus, but it otherwise still failed to capture the spirit of the old games, and its increased emphasis on storytelling and action would ultimately be its downfall several years later.
This is why I stopped shopping on Amazon, and you should too. Don't spend another dime on
anything
Amazon.
wrong with the game? Something happened with it? I wish they made a part 3, it'd been cool.
Following the success of the Vegas duology, the Rainbow Six series, along with many other Tom Clancy properties, experienced an uncharacteristic pause in their development schedule. Ghost Recon Future Soldier hit a few snags in development, and a new open-world Splinter Cell went quiet for several years before re-emerging as a more traditional cover-based shooter instead. And with the latest console generation in full swing, a bunch of new IP started to dominate the sales charts. Most notably, Activision's Call of Duty Modern Warfare series, that's responsible for influencing hundreds of games to adopt similar designs and concepts. This shift in market interest towards more simple FPS games put tactical shooters like Rainbow Six in a weird position, and likely had a major impact on Ubi Montreal's next big project. For this latest entry, creative lead David Sears wanted to dive deeper into the narrative aspects that they had experimented with in
My
Vegas,
brother's favorite game, Rainbow
only
Six
with a
Siege.
much darker, more realistic tone to it. Players would not just save the day as Team Rainbow, but would also be able to experience the point of view of both the terrorists and their victims, sparking a fair amount of controversy after its announcement. But it wasn't just the story that Ubisoft wanted to improve on. They also spent a great deal of time updating their visual design, finally abandoning the Unreal Engine and using their in-house Anvil Next engine instead. This allowed the team to incorporate even more advanced animation layering, along with specific animations that would play when bullets impacted different limbs. But there were also a few Vegas-oriented tropes planned as well. The third-person camera view when rappelling and taking cover was set to make a comeback, and a new sci-fi 3D spotting mechanic would have allowed players to keep track of enemies through walls, similar to how it functions in the more futuristic Ghost Recon games. Finally, in late 2011, Ubisoft formally announced the project with a brief pre-rendered concept demo, showcasing the dual storylines and an intense firefight along the Brooklyn Bridge. The game, given the working title Rainbow Six Patriots, was set to release for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 platforms in 2013. But only a few months after its reveal, news of the game's troubled development began to surface. Creative director David Sears, along with many other senior-level developers, were cut from the project. Then, both Red Storm and Ubi Toronto were reassigned to other projects, and the game's target release date had come and gone as if the game had never existed. Months passed,
that you're looking for.
then years, with more bad news regarding the project cropping up from various news outlets. Though Ubisoft continued to reassure fans that Rainbow Six Patriots was still actively in development. Behind the scenes, though, the development team struggled to keep up with the game's ambitious scope. As the industry continued to evolve around them, their dated concepts and designs became increasingly more apparent, and they were ultimately faced with a critical decision. Either press on with a game that they were tired of making, or start over with something that played more to the series' strengths.
Over here, now!
No, don't do this! No, what did you do? What I had to do.
In 2013, Ubisoft dissolved the Patriots team, leaving only a small skeleton crew of 25 behind to try and come up with a way to salvage the remains. They took a step back, analyzed the series' history up to that point, and identified that the series was at its absolute best when the focus was on tactics, tension, and teamwork. They then incorporated an experimental physics-based destruction engine that they felt added a unique twist to their tactical shooter formula. Finally, after years of uncertainty surrounding the IP, Ubisoft surprised audiences at E3 2014 with an alpha demo of their new Rainbow Six title. The demo showed a tense 5v5 competitive multiplayer match, with a group of attackers breaching a small suburban house to rescue a hostage. Many elements from past Rainbow games had seemingly returned, including a pre-mission planning phase and the ability to rappel. But the most notable feature showcased was the revolutionary destruction physics that turned a relatively simple level environment into a fully dynamic sandbox.
We got this. Get her. I got him.
The response was hugely positive, granting the new development team a sigh of relief. And after a year of additional development, Ubisoft released Rainbow Six Siege for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. Rainbow Six Siege doesn't offer a traditional single-player or co-op campaign to play through, and instead focuses almost exclusively on its online competitive atmosphere, where players control unique Rainbow Six operatives on either side and battle it out using advanced weapons and gadgetry. Though there is a bit of a narrative woven into the game's tutorial section, with a group of terrorists called the White Mask occupying several locations around the world, and ultimately attacking a college campus with a deadly chemical weapon. But even so, Siege at its core is a multiplayer game and offers one of the most tense and engaging competitive experiences in the series' history.
Oh my god! Holy
In its most basic form, Siege's multiplayer is a simple game of attack and defend. One team tries to breach a location, while the other team tries to fend them off. However, there is a unique asymmetrical twist to this design that enhances the game's long-lasting appeal.
Nice job.
Friendly is victorious. Hostiles eliminated.
Teams are composed of 5 players on each side, with no health regen or respawns available. This requires players to work in close collaboration with each other, optimize events, offering experimental game modes for a limited time. These modes generally offer basic rule changes and cosmetic alterations, but one mode in particular offered something very different to the traditional formula. Likely inspired by the popular Call of Duty Zombies experience, Ubisoft Montreal had begun experimenting with concepts for a new cooperative campaign, utilizing Siege's core gameplay design with new AI-controlled enemies, mutated by a mysterious alien virus. This mode played a lot like the cooperative shooter game Left 4 Dead, with linear level designs and objectives forcing players to traverse through zombie-filled corridors and face off against a number of different deadly threats. The mode released as part of Siege's first Year 3 expansion, Operation Chimera, and was given the name Outbreak. Though, due to memory limitations of the hardware, thanks to the talented team at Ubisoft Montreal, the series has managed to reclaim its spot as a premier tactical experience, and one that is enjoyed by hundreds of thousands of gamers at this very moment.
I kind of just enjoyed the